SOC Radio is proud to present James Devitt discussing with his guests from around the globe various topics on spirituality and its development, growth and philosophy, taking us into the 21st century and beyond. Join James live in the SOC Radio chat room to join the conversation while listening via our website at spiritualistonline.com.
Now, last week, my guest was supposed to be Heather Ellis Drake Stanke. Now, one of the things that she is very, very well known for is she is the CEO and founder of a little project called the Global Rising Summit. I actually was interviewed as a speaker on the Global Rising Summit last year and was on the first one, and they are currently in the process of doing the second one now. However, last week we had some major technical difficulties in the studio, and things didn't work the way that they were supposed to work. And so Heather and I had a long conversation afterwards, once it was known that the show was not going to be happening. And so Heather and I decided to try and do this again this week, today. And Heather, I'm at the gym this morning because I go to the gym first thing in the morning when I first get up. Because if I wait till later in the day, then it's like, don't really want to go. Do I have to go? But if I get up and it's the first thing I do in the morning is go to the gym, I'm more motivated that way. And it's working because I've actually lost, almost 1.5 kilos in the last 4 weeks that I've been going to the gym. So it is having a positive effect. Unfortunately, this morning I'm at the gym. I'm doing the chest press, and all of a sudden my phone goes off, and it's Heather. Now, Heather, like myself, has just recently moved from the Auckland area. She's moved down south a little bit from Auckland, not anywhere near as far south as I have, of course. And she messages me this morning, and she was supposed to be getting fiber broadband. Well, unfortunately, the workmen are there, and they've done something that it sounds like they shouldn't have done, and now all of a sudden she has no internet access at all, except for data, of course, and data can be chewed up pretty quickly. So we've actually decided to hold off, and next week we're going to try it all over again. And of course, the only thing that Heather and I could do this morning, to be really honest with you, is have a really good laugh. So I have asked a friend of mine, you probably all know her, if she would be willing to join me today for a little while anyway. We'll see how things go. And so I'd like to welcome to the show Tracy Cooper. You there, Tracy?
I certainly am, James. How are you this morning?
It's been a challenging morning, I can assure you of that. It's like it's one thing to get kind of a little bit of a bad news, but when you're at the gym trying to work out, it just kind of throws everything off kilter,
So much for your exercise then.
Well, no, I completed my routine, but I probably could have gone a little bit longer than I did, but I was running out of time because I actually had a consultation this morning at 9:30 and needed to sort out breakfast and everything before the show this morning. So it's been kind of full on, but it's all good, and we're moving forward. So
awesome.
It's all good.
Excellent.
So I thought today we could discuss spiritual concepts.
Okay.
One of the things that I've noticed, and I find it really fascinating, and I would love to hear your take on this, is the fact that a lot of people because we utilize, well, most of us anyway, well, that's not even true either. The English language, let me rephrase. The English language is one of those languages that, in order to bring across different concepts and understandings and things like that, we end up having to use labels.
Oh, yeah, don't mention labels.
Well, I already did. Okay, I mentioned labels.
Damn!
Now, the thing is, trust me, my feelings on labels are the exact same as yours. I can't stand them. I actually, I speak over a dozen different dialects of universal light language, and I actually prefer speaking in light language over English, simply because of that very fact. Yeah. And I wish that more people understood light language, and then I'd speak it all the time. Mm-hmm. But we get to this point of, because people use different labels, it's like they don't want to hear it unless you're using the label that they use. Do you find that?
Yeah, I do actually, because like I said, I don't like labels myself, but it depends on what you're labeling. But in the spiritual sense, I only decide to use labels in a certain context, if that makes sense.
All right, give me an example.
Yeah. For example, I decide for myself whether to share my gifts to people, but I don't use gifts as a label, if that makes sense. But for other instances, I would say, on the top of my head, in general, I don't judge people as well. So if that came across...
No, I understand that, because I don't judge people either. I mean,
I try not to if I can help it. But sometimes it can be overwhelming for me, and sometimes I do judge. So...
No, I do understand, and I always, I'm always very, I'm always very conscious about that, and not judging other people. One of the labels that I've had some issues with lately is the fact that I started using a label because I thought it made perfect sense to me. I don't know. I started using the label volunteers.
Right, okay.
Now, in my truth, it is a situation whereas there are two kinds of human beings on this planet. There are native humans, and there are volunteers. And the volunteers are native humans rather, are those individuals whose soul has only incarnated on this planet. Mm-hmm. Okay, and a volunteer is somebody whose soul has actually come to Earth from somewhere else, whether that be the Pleiades, the Arcturus, Orion, Alpha Centauri, Sirius, Lyra, the angelic realms, wherever. And so, for me, it seemed that was like very much common sense. And then I noticed that a lot of people seem to not correlate with the term volunteer. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems pretty self-evident and self-obvious that, a volunteer is somebody who hasn't originated from planet Earth, and mm-hmm. But the label that most people are familiar with and still go back to is starseeds.
Now, that seems interesting to me. So, my question to you, James, is what is a starseed?
Well, the funny thing is, a starseed is a volunteer.
Oh, okay. Now, see, I've actually learned something for a change.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
people have had this mentality that it's of star seeds, and this is the phraseology that they've used and utilized, and yet at the same time, it's a situation where it actually means the exact same thing as a volunteer.
See, I've just learned something for today. How's that? Thank you for clearing that up, James.
Well, my pleasure. I mean, that's part of the point of this show is to bring out these little inconsistencies, shall we say.
Yes.
But it is also a situation, believe it or not, whereby it is important to realize that this is only one aspect of a much greater situation that's happening on the planet. So many people think that they've got it all sussed out. They really do. They think they've got it all nutted out. They know the truth. They know what's going on, and hardly anybody can tell them anything different. I remember reading back in the day. There was a book that was released in 1982. Believe it or not,
Right.
1982. So
Right.
a long time ago. And in this book, it was called Project World Evacuation.
Okay.
Now, as you can imagine, what that's basically saying is that at some point in the future, the extraterrestrials, meaning the Ashtar Command, because that's who was being channeled, is going to have to remove the people that are on the planet for their own safety, for their own concern, or whatever the case may be. And like I said, this book was published in 1982. Now, there's a lot of people, believe it or not, who think that once something's been said, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up in Oklahoma, okay?
Yeah.
And I know that Jody is aware of that. Jody, who lives in New Mexico,
Yes.
because she lives very close to Oklahoma and everything.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in the Bible Belt. Okay, so it was all Christianity and everything like that back then. Back then, when I was growing up, I never even heard of like Hinduism or Islam or Druidism or Buddhism. I never heard of any of those things.
No, me either.
It was only Christianity and Judaism, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is that growing up there, you kind of feel isolated.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that with Christians, there are Christians today that are praying right now, this moment,
Yep.
for Armageddon, for the end of the world, because they feel like, it's time, and they want the returning Yeshua and all of this stuff. And so, and on it goes. And I have to admit that I kind of find it interesting in the sense that, in truth, Armageddon, did you know that Armageddon is actually a place?
It is?
It is.
Ooh.
The actual name is called Migio. And I probably butchered that name just now, but it's Migio. And
Okay.
it's actually, this place is actually in Israel.
Oh,
And I
okay.
have actually sat in Migio.
Wow.
Myself. I have actually sat in Armageddon.
Whoa, that's
Now,
so cool.
now, did you ever know that Armageddon was actually a place?
No.
No. Now, why Armageddon? I'll tell you why. Because the
Yes.
writers who initially wrote this way back when picked that place as going to be the place for the final battle for a very simple reason. And it's because, unfortunately, that place was a place where there had been many, many wars fought and lots of life lost in that place. And so they assumed that it would be the place where everything would happen and the final destruction would occur.
Yeah.
Okay? And so there are people today who still believe that this is coming
Yep.
and that this is going to happen, and there's absolutely nothing anybody can do. And we get to a point where all of a sudden we had Project World Evacuation.
Mm-hmm.
And now this was a channeled book that was channeled in well, it was published in 1982, so it's been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people today who still believe that this is what's going to happen. And they are praying to the Ashtar Command to come and save them.
Mm-hmm.
And to come and rescue them. And they actually, and here's the really funny part, sad part, whatever you want to term it. in Christianity, they believe that the righteous will be taken up into heaven,
Yeah.
if you will, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But those who are waiting on the Ashtar Command to come and save them also believe that the righteous are the ones that will be saved by the Ashtar Command.
Mm-hmm.
We have two different groups
Yep.
with two different, completely different beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
or so it says, who actually believe the exact same thing.
Yep.
And it goes one better. There are people, now I do realize there are some people out there who say that we are now living in the fifth dimension. Have you heard that?
No, actually, I haven't.
I've heard this quite a bit and from quite a few different people,
Right.
that we are now living in the fifth dimension. And I think to myself, wow, that's cool. We're in the fifth dimension now. That's awesome. But why aren't we in quantum time?
Yeah. Why aren't we?
Why are we still dealing with, all of the hatred and all of the war and things like this?
Yeah.
And you ask somebody this, and the first thing that happens, believe it or not, I mean, I couldn't believe this, they actually get angry. They get really angry at you. They're like, because it's all of a sudden you're challenging what they believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I certainly do, because, for me, I don't like debating, to be honest. So it's kind of like a debate where they sort of argue with you and they always have the last laugh, so to speak. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as myself, of course, goes,
Yeah.
I don't really mind a debate. A debate's fine, actually. I mean, it's neither here nor there. Where we get into problems, if you will, and dramas, is those people who automatically assume that the way that they view things is the only way, And if you don't view it that way, then they just come out and attack you.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
that I have a problem with. I have a major problem with that.
Yeah. And see, Jody's said a comment in the chat room here. And what is, in fact, the fifth dimension?
Well, you see, that's a great question. Now, here's another little tidbit, and I realize that I don't think a lot of people actually are aware of this. That at one time, and I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but apparently at one time, Einstein mathematically proved the existence of 27 different dimensions.
Okay.
Now to me, that's like, wow, that's cool. That's amazing, right? So basically what we have here is we are residing, shall we say, in the third dimension, right?
Right.
And so this is a dimension of duality, density, all sorts of things like that, and light and dark, good and bad, and so on and so on and so on. And so we have all of that. From what I understand now there are many people, believe it or not, who believe that once you move into the fifth dimension, there is no longer duality.
Okay.
There is no longer density. There is no longer anything like that. Everything is like beautiful and peaceful. Basically, if you've ever heard a Christian describe heaven, that is their description of the fifth dimension. Now, it is my truth, and trust me, I don't speak for anybody but myself.
Right.
Because I do realize that, different people have different truths, and it's designed to assist them to walk a path that they've chosen to walk here. And it's just like I can come into your life and have an effect on your life, and you can have an effect on my life. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you, Tracy, are the only person that can walk your path.
Exactly.
And I'm the only person that can walk my path. So it's my understanding through like 27 years of channeling these higher dimensional beings, that is, through my understanding, the fifth dimension, it's in quantum time. It is a place where there is duality. There is not the same sort of duality as there is here. And to be really honest with you, it's not really something that they have gone out of their way to like completely explain their duality. And when I've asked them about it, they basically said, look, at the end of the day, you are residing on Earth. And so you need to be focused where you are. And when the time comes and you're in the fifth dimension and you come home, then you'll understand and you'll know what we mean by that. And I accept that. There's too many people who get too caught up in things that in truth have nothing to do with who they are or why they're here or anything else. So I understand that.
Now, after the fifth dimension, does it actually go into another dimension after the fifth, if that makes sense?
I have channeled beings who are in the 6th, 7th, 8th dimensions as well as the 11th dimension. So okay. I have channeled beings that are in higher dimensions. In the fifth dimension, one of the things that they've kind of impressed upon me, per se, is that generally speaking, most beings in the fifth dimension are fairly clear and conscious of what their life is about and what they are doing and why they are doing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit different because for most people on Earth, it's almost a fight to get to a point where we understand why we're here.
Yeah.
And what it is that we're meant to be doing, and we meet somebody and we feel a bond or a connection with somebody, and we're sitting there going, but I don't understand why. Why do I feel this? What is it about this that's, so there are those different things.
Yeah.
So apparently they have more of an understanding of their path and what their purpose is and things like this. But one thing that I have learned through many, many years of channeling, just like us, they can get frustrated.
Yep.
They can get angry.
Yep.
It's not, see, that's the whole thing. So many people think, oh, well, it's the, it's all perfect and everything in the fifth dimension. It's not. They have lessons to learn just like we do.
Yeah.
They have experiences to have just like we do. It's not a situation where they have, well, I'm in the fifth dimension, so I have a free ride. No, it's not like that at all. So we come to a point where we have to ask ourselves, what really matters on this journey?
Yeah.
So for you, right, for you,
Yep.
if someone was to come to you and say, Tracy, just out of curiosity, for your life, beyond, of course, the normal, like your husband, your kids, your family and stuff, but for you personally on a spiritual level, what is the most important thing to you?
To me, I would say humanity, peace, and love.
Right.
And what I would like to see in the whole universe is that. So we don't have to have hatred or wars or politicians arguing and saying we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to vote for this, we have to vote for that. So that's my simple way of answering your question.
Now, Jody actually said that that it's about evolution moving forward. Hello,
Yeah.
Jeanette. Now, evolution, and I'm really glad that Jody put that into the chat room, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I have worked for a long, long time to understand things and to understand how things are traveling, how things work on a spiritual level. Now, understand, please, that for me, it has been a situation where I have not had in my life, and this is not a bad thing, so please don't take it that way. Anybody who's listening to the show, don't worry about this part of it. I don't have a lot of friends, and I've never had a lot of friends. So I've had a lot of time to be contemplative and to be reflective on my life and things like that. And what I've come up with is she's absolutely right. And this is something that they've been talking to me about for some time, that it's actually the Project Earth. All right, we'll put it this way. Project Earth. Growing up in church, I was always told by those in church and those above me and the adults and everything, because I was a kid and everything, they all would say the same thing. God has a plan for us and for Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, my first question was, great, what's the plan? And, of course, they would all come back and tell me the exact same thing. We have no idea, but I'm sure that God will reveal this when God's ready.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, nobody could ever tell me what it was that was the plan for Project Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But after many, many years of interacting with the higher dimensional beings and so on and so forth, what I got was the fact that Project Earth is all about evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, as I said, in my truth, what I believe, there are two kinds of people. There are native humans,
Yep.
and there are starseeds or volunteers. So what would the volunteers or starseeds be here to do, except to assist the native human beings in their evolution?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I do actually. Yes.
Because you see, think of it this way. Let's say we have someone from the Pleiades,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, we have somebody who, let's say, they have where they come from, they reside in the fifth dimension. They reside in quantum time in the fifth dimension. They come here, and it's like, okay, now you're going to volunteer on this little planet called Earth, and the purpose of it is to assist the native human population in their evolution. Because basically what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get them to the same place where you are. And,
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
with the same understanding and all of these things. And it's like, okay, great, no problem. Yeah, I understand that. And so what do we have? We've got a situation where all of a sudden they have to descend, shall we say, from where they reside in the fifth dimension normally into the third dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where over a course of time, where they fully descend into becoming physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get to a point where they forget where they come from. They forget their natural state. They forget all of these things. And so we've got these people. I spoke to somebody today, and it was like they have these abilities, and they're trying to understand the abilities. But the truth is, they're there because it's part of who they really are. They've just forgotten. So it's not so much that we are having to learn to be healers or learn to be readers. We are, in fact, remembering more of who we truly are.
Interesting. Now, I have a question for you, James, if you
I
don't mind
love
asking.
questions. I love questions. So ask away.
Okay. What happens if somebody, just out of the blue, right, doesn't remember their childhood? How would you advise that person?
Well, I would probably start off, to be honest with you, and ask them, okay, so the first question I would have is, at what point do you start to remember? What age, what age were you that you remember?
21.
21. Now, do you have any like pictures, yearbooks, things like this that you still have and stuff from like going to school?
No.
No. Okay. Do you have a family?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever spoken to them regarding your growing up years?
In bits and pieces, yes.
Okay. Why
But
have
the
you
funny,
not, why have
but
you
the
not spoken to them more fully about it?
is because I had a sort of like a really traumatic childhood, but the weird part is, why is it I only remember my brother's 5th birthday but not mine?
Interesting.
Mm.
Okay, now, was there something, now you say that you began to remember at around the age of 21.
Yeah, I started getting images from my childhood, but what got me the most is why am I only remembering it now? Because I'm going to reveal my age here. 46, but like I said, I can only remember 21 years, but not further back.
No, that's fine. So, my question to you is this. Around the age of 21,
Mm-hmm.
did something occur?
Yes.
What occurred?
Something really personal. And it lasted until that age. Now it's got James thinking now.
No, no, I'm just I the
And I'll
and
tell you the reason
no,
why.
hold on.
All right.
Now,
Okay.
is this like a hypothetical or is this about you?
This is about me. Yes.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Because I know what I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
and I know what I've been through.
Yep.
I would say now you remember
Mm-hmm.
your brother's
5th birthday. Yes.
fifth birthday,
Yep.
but you don't remember yours.
Nope.
Now, do you remember any of his other birthdays?
No, that was the only one that sort of stuck out the most.
So that stuck out the most.
Yeah.
Now, what was it about your brother's 5th birthday that you remembered?
I saw basically some of his friends gathering around at the house, and it was kind of like I was observing the image, and like it kind of went, it kind of put me there, if that makes sense, and then nothing after that.
Okay, no worries. Now, one last question.
Yep.
When you remember
Mm-hmm.
your brother's 5th birthday,
Yep.
do you remember it as though you were part of it,
Yes.
or do you remember it as an observer of the event?
Both.
Okay. I like the fact, and I like the fact that you put me on the spot here, and I think it's cool. I really do.
Okay. Okay.
And so,
Cool.
no, it's all good because
Okay.
I actually, because I'm talking to. I'm talking to some different ones at the moment about this,
Mm-hmm.
and so here we go. Now here's what I need you to do. All right,
All right. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you what I'm getting. I'm going to tell you what I all of these things, right?
Right.
Now, what I need you to do is I need you to discern.
Yep.
So, and I need you to be honest with me, and if it
Mhm.
resonates, tell me. If it doesn't resonate, tell me as well.
Okay, will do.
Okay, good, good. All right, here we go. You went through some very, well, let me rephrase. Your physical self went through some very severe things.
Yes.
And it went through some beyond what I would say traumatic things.
Yes.
What was going on here is you were, and I don't know why I feel this, but this is what I feel. I feel as though you were protecting your brother or something, and then on top of that, we have a situation where you were in essence, and I know this is going to sound horrible, and I do apologize.
Mhm.
But it's almost like you were being of service in the sense that you were enabling at least one, if not two, individuals in clearing out karma that
Okay.
they needed to clear out. And it was a situation where you have a phenomenal, and I do mean phenomenal, strength.
Mhm.
And you have a phenomenal fortitude. And you were connected, shall we say. But the person who went through the traumatic events, although it has had an effect on you personally in your life,
Mhm.
in your dealings, in your relationships, and all of these things, what it basically has happened here is the fact that you, at the age of 21, an event happened, something occurred, and because of that event, you basically, well, a walk-in experience happened.
Oh.
And
Okay.
there was a change in souls.
Okay. Yep.
And so the soul that actually went through all of these traumatic events left. And the impression that I have is that when they left, they were immediately taken to a facility. And this facility is the type of facility where people go after their incarnation when they've had very traumatic things happen in their life, and they have gone there to heal. They have healed, and that soul, who is actually, truth be told, the two of you are actually very, very tight
Mhm.
and very, very close. And they are actually, because this was all arranged ahead of time,
Mhm.
I keep getting this feeling, I keep getting this sense
Yep.
that on the other side of this, that you two are actually in truth family. And this was prearranged before the incarnation actually occurred. And basically what's happened here is that they are now on the other side with you, whereas up until the age of 21, you were on the other side with them. So you see, you were actually there assisting them with what they were going through. And then all of a sudden, of course, when the switch happened, they went off to heal. I kind of imagine, for some reason, that perhaps from the age of 21 until about 25 or 26, there may have been a situation where you may have felt a little bit lost and really unsure of yourself and things like that.
Yes, that's correct.
And it's because during that time, the other soul, shall we say, was in this facility healing.
Yep.
And then when they were able to rejoin you, then you began to find your feet again and find your way in things.
Yep. Because from the age of 21 to 22, I actually had a near-death experience as well. So, yes.
Yeah, but that all ties in. That all, because you see, the problem is that in a situation like this now, I'm a walk-in myself, but I walked in at the age of 2 years old.
Okay.
So I'm a walk-in as well, and I'm fairly familiar with walk-ins. And what ends up happening is when a situation like this occurs where this transition is already it's already known on the other side that this is what's going to happen, because the other one who was born into this incarnation, shall we say, they are the ones who left, but then all of a sudden it was like a situation where there was some debate on whether you were actually going to remain here or not, which explains why you went through the near-death experience.
Yeah. Yeah, through a car accident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are times when you're given a choice.
Yep.
That you chose to stay and to remain.
Yep.
Which is a good thing.
Yep.
I mean, I personally like the fact that we get to meet and interact and talk, and so I'm glad you decided to stay. That's great.
Yep.
But yeah, so my question to you is, does this resonate?
It certainly does.
Does this answer give you the information you need for this part of your life?
Most definitely, yes. You've actually, my mind's going all over the place, but when you said walk in, that actually shocked me.
Why is that?
Because I actually never heard of walk-in either, but I've only read a little bit. But can you explain what a walk-in is?
Sure. A walk-in basically is an individual. Let me explain it to you in a way that's a little bit different. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
My wife is my twin flame.
Right.
So basically, she is literally my other half. Now, my wife was born on the 30th of January, 1965.
Right.
Physically, I was born on February 2nd, 1964. So technically, for 3 days each year, we're the same age.
Okay.
But only for those 3 days. And then I'm a year older again. Which she always reminds me of. But then she also says to me, but I'm older. And the reason she says that is because I walked into this body at the age of 2. And the reason I did was because for twin flames to come together in physical, it is because they have something really important to do. So if she's not here, or if I'm not here, there's no point in the other one being here. Now, when an individual is born, there are these beings, and they're known as ushers.
Right.
And that's actually a name that my wife came up with many, many years ago. Now, the ushers, people would probably classify ushers as being angels. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what their job is they assist souls who are entering into the physical, and they assist souls leaving the physical. And so I actually went and stood with a couple of ushers when my wife was going to be born. And the reason is because every soul, when they are born, sometimes we hear this situation that a child has been stillborn, or the child, everything looks fine, and then the child is born, but the child doesn't survive. And the situation is, until that child is born and that soul enters the physical body, that soul can choose not to enter. Okay.
Okay.
And so I was there when my wife was born, just to make sure that she went through it, because if she didn't go through it, then there would be no reason for me to incarnate. Now, I had made an agreement with another soul, and what they wanted to experience and what they wanted to go through is they wanted to be born, go through the birth process, and just live for 2 or 3 years, and that was it. That's all they wanted to do. That's fine. Well, as you well know, parents have a child, and then all of a sudden that child passes away at such an early age. That's very, very traumatic for those parents. So instead of that happening, it was agreed that this other soul would be born into my body for the first 2 years, and then there'd be a situation happen where he would then be able to leave and I would come in. And the event that took place was, in a way, a near-death experience. I got a nickel caught in my throat. And my face had turned every color of the rainbow, including blue and everything else. And my mom and my aunt were carrying me out the door, trying to get me to the car, and they were pounding me on the back, and they had me by my legs, upside down and everything. And so this is what occurs, and this is what happens. And then there's those situations where they're living their life and they're over it. They don't want to be in life anymore. They're choosing to leave. And someone on the other side of the veil will notice this, and there'll be another soul who goes, you know what? With what I need to do, I don't need to be born into a body. I don't need to go through childhood and all of those types of things. But what they've got here would suit me really, really well. And so it's a situation where something occurs, a near-death experience is generally how it happens, and then that individual will leave and the other soul enters. And when it happens later on in life, a lot of times there is a difference in personality. Sometimes it's covered up for certain reasons, but generally there is a change in the personality. There's a change in how they're reacting and everything like that.
Cool.
Now, in about 7 minutes, we're going to be going to break.
Yep.
For a short break, so that we can pay our bills and everything like that. And
and
so
get a coffee.
and get a coffee. I need to get a coffee desperately. It's very chilly here. I've actually got a jumper on, and I've got my fingerless gloves on. because
Oh,
it's very, very chilly in my office, and it's all good because I'm feeling good because I've been to the gym, and I haven't been to the gym for a couple of days because I I ended up having some early morning meetings the last couple of days, and so I was really pleased. I went to the gym and I still lost 200 grams. So
awesome.
I'm very, very happy. So I really find our conversation, Tracy, to be really, really exciting and stimulating. And
Yes.
and there are people in the like Jeanette in the chat room who's finding this really interesting as well. And
Mhm.
these are topics and subjects that are out there, but what I find is so many people don't actually talk about them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they don't go there, and I'm not sure whether they're afraid to, or if it's a situation where they don't know enough about it. I mean, being on this path for as long as I have and experiencing the things that I've experienced, see, for me, I I didn't go through the things that your physical self went through,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
However, as a kid, I did go through physical abuse, and I went through physical, emotional, and mental abuse from a stepfather.
Yep. Same here.
And part of it was actually the surname I had to use while my mom was married to him, which was Goodbread. And you can
Okay.
you can imagine the teasing I got from that name.
Oh, I can imagine.
However, you know, because of that situation, and I do take a lot of time to reflect on my life, because if you reflect on your life, you actually learn a lot,
Mhm.
and you become aware of a lot of things, and I think that's also partly where the phrase hindsight is 2020 comes from as well.
Okay.
But what we've got here is I discovered that these three and a half years that I went through all this physical abuse and mental and emotional abuse from my stepfather was a gift I gave to him.
Aw.
I had no karma with him. He had karma that he needed to clear in order to move forward. And I don't know whether it was a situation where the other person wasn't ready to clear the karma or whatever the case may be, but a situation occurred where I went through this with him so that he could clear this karma and he could move forward. Now, mind you, he was a major alcoholic,
Mhm.
and although I never saw him again, I know that he died of liver failure and liver problems because of his drinking. And he died much younger than he should have. But
Yeah.
I'd also know for a fact, actually, that he has reincarnated, and that his path is so much different than it would have been had I not done that.
Hmm. Interesting.
So I want to thank you for putting me on the spot.
Oh,
I
that's all right. Anytime.
I like doing that time to time because it's like, it shows a different side, which I think is important. I really
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
So we're 2 minutes from the top of the hour. This is spirituality for the 21st century and beyond, and we're going to go to a break. And before we do, um, Tracy, where can people find you online?
Okay, they can find me on Facebook as Tracy Cooper 45, or I have a website which is mediumtracy.com.
And you can find me. I'm in a couple of different places actually. On Facebook, I have a group which is called The Way Spiritual Philosophy. I've also got a page which is Metamorphoses. life coaching, life transformations, and it's actually www.facebook.com/transformational coaching, and also my page, Blue Star Spiritual Group International, and my website, which is www.bluestarspiritual.com. And we'll see you on the other side, Tracy. You get a cup of coffee. I'm going to get a cup of coffee and warm up a little bit. And then we will continue this fascinating conversation.
No problem. Thank you, James.
Excellent.
James will be right back after some messages from our sponsors. Enjoy these and information from SOC Radio and rejoin us in a few minutes. SOC Radio presents Andrew D's The Room Next Door. Join Andrew as he shows us how it's done, opening the door to spiritual communication, development and interaction. Get your readings, inspiration and guidance direct from Spirit via Andrew. Join us at spiritualistonline.com and the radio chat room as we welcome all. So let's step into The Room Next Door. Beyond the Veil with Terry Oz. Check it out first Monday, monthly, 2 p.m. UK time. Terry shares her experiences and love of spiritual communication with those from beyond the veil. Join us live in the SOC Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. The Circle of Mediums radio show. 6 mediums, healers, psychics, tarot, astrologers, spiritual workers every week, sharing spirit messages, development techniques, guidance and much more. Live in the SOC Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com or simply listen in at tunein.com. Search SOC Radio. Would you like to contribute readings, thoughts, teachings and time to this 2-hour show? Get in touch at socradioshows@gmail.com. Spirit Weavers with Jodie White Wolf Morrison, a weekly 1-hour radio show, Thursdays 8 p.m. UK time, featuring those who are dedicated to living their spirituality and exploring how that is woven into their everyday lives through their work, practices and beliefs. Various SOC members from Spiritualist Online Network and Lyceum sharing their abilities, knowledge and more. Dates and times will vary. Live in the SOC Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. Myths and Legends with Jeanette Jade and guests, Monday at 10 a.m. UK time and 11 p.m. New Zealand time. Do you like ghost stories? Are you interested in true, historical and fictional spooky tales? Then join us each Monday for some spooky tales from Facebook group Ghosts, the Paranormal, Supernatural Myths and Legends. Psychic medium Jeanette and her guests chat and discuss these and other stories, personal experiences alongside some readings and messages from Spirit and more. Dare you call in and share your stories? Add Circle of Mediums to your Skype and join in the show. Advertise with SOC Radio. 10, 15, 20 or 30 second jingles, adverts or promotions, all going out live on SOC Radio. Promote your services, churches, groups or events at the best rates online. Work with us on shows or promotion and you could get your jingles absolutely free. For this and more, contact Julie at socradioshows@gmail.com. Welcome back to Spirituality in the 21st Century with James Devitt and his guests discussing the future of spirituality.
Go.
Welcome back to Spirituality for the 21st Century and Beyond. I am your host, James Thomas Devitt from the Blue Star Spiritual Group International. And my guest today is Tracy Cooper. Welcome back, Tracy. How you doing?
I'm very well, James. How are you?
Yeah, it's you know, I got to admit, I'm loving the conversation today. I'm one of these people that can I can talk about this stuff just all the time. This is my type of thing. Um, and I really appreciate the question as well, because we have this tendency sometimes to experience things and go through things, and instead of finding out the actual reasons for it, we have this tendency to kind of put it off into the sunset and not really deal with it much. So I did have a question, though, something that you said.
Yes, go for it.
When you had your near-death experience,
Yep.
did you experience anything?
Yes, I did. What after I had my car accident, I found my body actually going up towards heaven, and also as I was traveling up, the traveling up was really cool. I didn't mind that whatsoever.
Right.
And as soon as I got sort of like, you could say halfway up from earth to heaven, right? There was like, I saw an image of a tunnel, a white tunnel cloud.
Right.
Yep. And next thing I knew, I heard this male's voice. And I knew it was probably from heaven. So I'm assuming it's the Lord Jesus Christ.
Right.
And he basically told me it's not my time yet. And then as soon as he said that, I basically come crashing down to earth. And that was the discomfort.
It's fascinating in the sense that looks like there's some comments in the chat room.
It's all right. We've got it back now, guys. So yeah, I just realised the error from the server, but it's back on now. So yeah. James was explaining to me my near-death experience, and I was explaining to James that I went up to heaven, and then halfway up to heaven to earth, I basically saw like a tunnel, and as I saw the tunnel, a male's voice of the Lord Jesus Christ said to me, it's not my time. So I came back down to earth with a thud. Just to catch people up.
and it's fascinating because, I mean, it happens differently for different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
In November of 1971, and yes, I am aware that I'm going back a ways.
Okay.
My grandfather, now my grandfather was a very interesting man. He basically was the very first person ever to independently own and run a Firestone store in the entire Pacific Northwest in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in advertising and sales all of his life. And at this particular juncture, he had a advertising company called KDJ Productions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the K stood for my mother, whose name was Careen.
Mm-hmm.
T stood for my sister Terry. And the J stood for me.
Okay.
And so KDJ Productions, and there were a few times when, as a family, we would actually do commercials for my grandfather for the business and stuff, which was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1971, we were at church, and he sang in the choir, and he had a massive coronary. And so he was taken to hospital, and he died twice on the table. And whereas for you you were doing this traveling and stuff and going through the tunnel and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for him, what he experienced was a little bit different. What he experienced was he basically, there was a situation where he found himself standing in front of stairs.
Okay.
Now, his mother, his physical mother, had passed away when he was 6 years old. My grandfather and my great grandparents on that side of the family, which is my mom's side of the family, they were born in. They're from Sweden,
Uh-huh.
and they came to America when my grandfather was very, very young,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he was 6, his mother passed away. And so at this particular juncture in 1971, his mother is standing halfway down the stairs, and there's a man standing in a doorway, but he assumes that it's Jesus, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not sure because there's a lot of light around the guy, and he can't really see his features or anything.
Right.
And his mother tells him, George, you can come home now. You don't need to stay any longer. And he said, I'm not done yet.
Ah. See, it's different, isn't it?
So you see, it happens differently for different people. And
Yeah.
then of course you have those situations like what we were discussing before
Yeah.
where all of a sudden it's like an individual leaves and they decide, the guys upstairs, let's say, they decide not to waste an opportunity,
Mm.
and they have a walk-in experience where somebody comes in and all of a sudden takes over that life and takes over that body.
Yeah.
So my point to it is, we as living in the land of density and duality in the third dimension on good old planet Earth, they've tried to create this situation where everything is really simple. And it's
Yeah.
like you look at Christianity and what do we have? We've got, well, if you do this, this happens. If you do that, that happens.
Yep.
And that's the way it works. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well that's simple then. Whether we actually want to understand and realize, they feel like, oh, well, that's really simple to understand and to recognize and everything like that. Where
Mm-hmm.
in reality, the universe is extremely complex.
Yep.
But they try and make it as simple as they can for those people here. And so it's been brought around very gently, I think walk-ins have. And you've got some people like Daniel Brinkley and people like that who have been through the walk-in experience, who have then gone on to write books about it and
Yep.
talk about it and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much going on that people aren't aware of. And this also comes back to labels. The labels that we use. The evil, evil labels.
Those damn labels.
I know. It's those labels, those damn labels. We must destroy the labels.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the thing that is happening now is we have this situation where we have a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
who are discovering interesting ways to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to share a story with you.
Yep.
And this was something that kind of changed my perspective, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
on death.
Okay.
And this completely changed the way I viewed death. It completely changed the way I viewed our lives on this planet.
Okay.
In 1989, this was probably about a month or 2 months before I started channeling. I lived in a little town that was east of Puyallup, which was just south of Tacoma, Washington, called Bonnie Lake, Washington.
Right.
And it was a wonderful little community. It was up on a hill, and it was a really nice place. It really was. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine came to me one day and said, "Look, I need to do my driving test. However, my truck has a broken tail light, and I don't really have the money to fix it at the moment." I said, "Okay, so what do you need?" And he goes, "Is it possible for me to borrow your car to do my driving test in?
Right.
And then, in payment, I'll take you to the pub and I'll buy you lunch." And I thought, well, that's fine. That's good. So I loaned him my car. He went and did his driving test. We went to the pub, and I'm having a beer and having lunch, and all of a sudden there's these people at the window, and they're oohing and they're awing, right?
Right. Right.
And when I served in the U.S. Air Force, I was a medic, and I served over in Bitburg, West Germany, with the United States Air Force, and I was a medic, and I worked medical surgical ward and stuff like this. And so I went over to the window and I looked out, and I saw this young lady on the ground. And so I went out, like you do. I went out to see if I could help this young lady. And I get up to her, and basically, to set the scene, I couldn't see, her chest wasn't moving, so I knew she wasn't breathing. Her mouth was open a little bit, and there was a little bit of blood on her upper teeth, but that was it. So I thought, okay, I'll reach down and I'll check her carotid artery on her neck, see if there's a pulse at all. And when my finger was like 2 inches from her neck, all of a sudden I felt, and there was nobody else around us physically, all of a sudden I felt a hand on my right shoulder, and I heard, clear as a bell, "It's okay. This is how I chose to leave." And I was like frozen. I was frozen for the moment, and I was like, and she said again, she goes, "Like I said, it's okay. This is how I've chosen to leave." And I stood up, and I went back into the pub. I didn't say a word to anybody. The medics, the ambos came, and they got her body going again, and I knew they did because her stomach bloated. Mm-hmm. And they took her away. And about a half an hour later, I have no idea who or why or anything, but basically somebody called the pub and said that she had passed away. And I'm just sitting on my bar stool drinking beer and going, I already knew that because she told me. Oh. And that completely changed the way I look at death and life.
Wow.
Because we have a situation here, because what happened was, where the pub was a main road, and behind the pub was a large parking lot, and there was a grocery store there. And this motorcycle was pulling in to the parking lot, and it was only going like 10 miles an hour. And it hit the side of a car that was coming out. The guy who was driving the motorcycle, her boyfriend, bumped his right knee a little bit, and that was it. But for some reason, she flew over 40 feet in the air.
Ouch.
It launched her completely out.
Whoa.
And so it's like, all of a sudden, I realized that we, in actual fact, we may act like we know a lot, but we don't actually know as much as we think we do.
No,
and that there is a lot more going on than meets the eye.
It definitely gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because all of a sudden it was like, I realized, because then you see, I had that experience in '89, but like I had said in the first hour, I do a lot of reflecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered back to my grandmother when she was on her deathbed, the last time I spoke to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her saying to me, I know exactly what's going on. I know what's happening, and everything is fine. And she basically was saying to me, look, I've already been on the other side. I already know what's going on. We've already discussed everything. So these are the two things that, above everything else, you must do. And she gave me two things that I had to do, which I did do. One of which, of course, was staying on the path that I was starting, which is the path that I'm on now.
Yep.
But you see, she hadn't responded to anyone for 2.5 days before I got there.
Oh, wow.
And then after she spoke to me, she didn't speak again after that.
Wow.
So I understand. Yeah, exactly. I understand that there is a lot more happening here than meets the eye.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, generally speaking, what I find, and this is an aspect of mediumship, shall we say, that I always find fascinating.
Yeah.
It seems to me like with mediumship, it's more about, I know for a lot of people they say it's about the healing process and stuff like that. But for some reason, I keep having this feeling, shall we say, that it has more to do with, it doesn't really have a lot to do with those on the other side. It has a lot more to do with those who are still here. And I always find that aspect rather fascinating. And then I look at myself and I'm like, perhaps I'm a little jaded now because I've got this situation where, having had this lady who I did not know, I didn't know who she was. Mm-hmm. I never did find out her name or anything like that. But having this lady basically tell me that everything was fine and that it was the way she chose to leave that indicated to me that what was going on was so much more than what we realize.
Yep. Wow.
I've had some doozies of experiences, I can assure you.
I can imagine. That is a doozy. To say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it just, I mean, it actually, I was like so dumbstruck. I basically couldn't talk for 2 days.
Really? Wow.
I didn't know. It's like when you experience something like that, which is so life altering on so many different levels, I mean, it's like it's something that you just have to process, and you hope to God that you're able to move through it in such a way that you can function.
Yeah.
Because I was always under the impression, mind you, I was always under the impression that, when we left, because like I said, I grew up as a Christian.
Mhm.
So it was, 89 was a year of like mind-blowing events. Because I had one other event that blew my mind as well and continued to change my entire perspective on everything.
Uh-huh.
But I realized that, I honestly, I thought that it was a situation that, for us, incarnated on this planet, and I did believe in reincarnation, mind you, at that particular point.
Yeah.
But I honestly believe that there was no clue of when we would or would not leave this planet. And that got shattered. I mean, uncontrollably shattered.
Yeah.
So what would you say is a defining moment on your path so far?
So far for me is learning about mediumship for a start, because way back before I even knew mediumship, I didn't even know you could actually do mediumship online for a start.
Wow,
And,
okay.
yeah, because I never knew anything about mediumship or psychic development or anything like that. So that was my defining moment for me. And then once I started doing it, I thought to myself, wow. And all it takes is to basically believe in oneself that you can do things, anything that you wish to believe. And also too, for me, once I started developing, it was like it just came naturally to me as well. So yeah, so that's my answer to your question.
Now, learning this, what has surprised you?
That I could do it.
Now, okay, all right, no, that's fair enough. That's very fair enough. But now, beyond that, what else has really surprised you?
That as I've grown spiritually, my outlook on life is different. But also too, I've noticed in the last probably 6 months my empathy has grown, and that can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming, definitely. I've always found that it's very important to maintain a check
Yes.
on empathy,
Mhm.
because the problem is, of course, is the fact that we need to remember that not everyone has the same path as everybody else, and there are plenty of people out there, even if people don't necessarily want to believe it,
Yeah.
that have chosen to go through very severe things and very difficult things.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean,
Especially when it comes to emotional, physical, and abuse as well.
very, by all means, I mean, I went through abuse as well,
Yep.
and it was like, but it's like I got to a point where I realized that I actually gave a tremendous gift. And
Yeah.
so for me, and I realize that this may sound however it may sound, but for me, I realized that what I did and what I gave is what was asked of and what was needed,
Mhm.
and that there isn't anything wrong with me or anybody else. It is what it is, and there's so much more to life than what we realize.
Yeah.
And there's so much more going on than what we realize. And so the more that we understand that and accept that, the easier, I believe, it becomes for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I had it. I've been debating. I got to admit to you, I've been debating on whether to share this particular story or not.
Okay.
And I just have this feeling, because this is one of those things where spirit decides something
Mm-hmm.
that we just don't get. We don't understand, and it's one of those things that it's like, even to this day, I don't understand it.
Okay.
Like I said, 1989 was a very intense year for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some really incredible experiences. And so I want to share one of those experiences that just really altered and changed my life. As I said earlier, I'm one of these people that basically never had a lot of friends or anything like that, and that's fine. It is what it is, and there's I kind of had issues around it when I was young, but those all went away and everything, and I moved well beyond that and everything. So this particular day, it's in Bonnie Lake as well, and
Right.
I'm at my house. My mom is at work. I'm basically living with my mom at the time because my grandfather had passed away, and my mom, to be honest, she had never really lived alone. And so I didn't want her living alone at that particular point. So I had moved up to Washington State, and it's where I needed to be to connect with different people as well, which I did, which assisted me on moving forward on my path and everything. So that worked out well anyway. But I'm at home one day. My mom's at work, so I'm there alone, and I'm laying on my bed, and I'm just kind of hanging out. I was waiting for a friend of mine who was due to come over in a few hours, and so I was just kind of chilling out because normally when he came over, we were up until 5, 6 in the morning playing cribbage. Love the cribbage. And all of a sudden, and it was a sunny day outside, and all of a sudden I felt what felt like to me rain. And it was the weirdest thing because there was no rain inside, of course. And it's like I'm feeling these raindrops all over me, but there's no actual rain or anything like that. So it's just really kind of strange and weird and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden, I start feeling pure, unconditional love. And when I say pure, I mean the purest, unconditional love you have ever experienced in your life. And it's mind blowing to me. It's like, I'm actually feeling bliss, and it's incredible. And I'm trying to figure out, where this is coming from. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I can feel all of this pure, unconditional love for every animal, every stone, every tree, every living thing on this planet, every bird, every fish, every blade of grass, every mountain, every drop of water, everything. And then all of a sudden I could feel this love for every star and every planet in the universe. And it just continued to grow. And it was the most amazing thing you could ever possibly imagine. And then all of a sudden, I had all of this love for every being that's in the universe. And I realized that in truth, there's a lot of beings in the universe. And a lot of beings that we don't know about. And then all of a sudden, it was like, I'm laying there, and it's like I had an epiphany. I realized there is no heaven and there is no hell. And then all of a sudden I realized God doesn't judge anybody. And then I realized that what I was experiencing was the ultimate, pure, unconditional love of God. And I knew that what I had been told when I was little, that God had this intense love for all life, I knew was true. And it altered my perception, and it altered my view. And it lasted, to me it felt like it lasted about a half an hour. Okay, it really felt like it lasted a long time. But it probably only lasted like 2 or 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden, it stopped. And from that moment forward, how I've lived my life, how I proceeded with life, I had so much to learn, and it wasn't easy, but I got to a point where it changed me so much that I have issues sometimes with people who are really negative. But it's not because I'm overly sensitive, and it's not because their energy is affecting me negatively or anything like that. It's more along the lines of it just doesn't resonate with me, you see.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this changed my life. And so the question that I've had since then, and this is the funny part, I haven't asked the question, why did you share that with me? I didn't ask, anything like that. My question was, thank you so much for what you shared with me, because it changed everything that I am. But what I don't understand is why. Why don't you do this for everybody?
Maybe it's for a reason.
Oh, no. It definitely is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to do with my path, and it has to do with who I am and things like that. And although for a long, long time I didn't understand that, I do get that, and I do understand that. And all right, I can, okay, I understand that. But at the same time, I think to myself, if people, one of the things that really changed or enabled me to shift and change judging other people was this experience. Because I have so much love for people, and it altered how I viewed things and how I view so many things, and it took a long, long time for it to really integrate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that occurred in 1989, and like I said, 89 was a magical year. I mean, I've gotten to experience probably the freakiest thing that I ever went through, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, being a medium and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what I experienced once, I lived in a place in Sonoma, California, and we had a walk-in closet.
Okay.
But there wasn't a door or anything like that, right? It was like if you look at it head on, there was like a dressing table and a mirror, and then there was an opening to the right, and you go in that opening, and then it's like a hallway, and that's the walk-in closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm laying in bed one night, and the lights are off, and as per normal, I'm having a little bit of trouble going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I watch 7 beings come out of the walk-in closet and stand in front of me.
Whoa. Okay.
And I was like, now the funny thing is, here's the funny thing. It's the only time in my life I've ever experienced that.
Did you freak out?
Well, at first I'm laying there and I'm like, what the? I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, I mean, what, do we have a convention in town? Nobody bothered to tell me? You know, I'm like, what the, you know, and so all of a sudden, I know, and so all of a sudden, it actually ended up being, it wasn't individuals who had crossed over.
Right.
It was like those individuals that work with me. But they didn't like show themselves completely. Is basically they allowed me to see like their physical outlines.
Oh, wow.
Now, have you ever experienced anything like that?
No, I have not.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't make that happen. Don't get me wrong, but that was like there have been certain things that have happened in my life, and I'll be honest with you, these certain things that have occurred, and it's like, you know what? No matter what happens in my life, there is no way I can ever say I don't believe in this.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that would freak me out.
I mean, I was very surprised. I was very, very surprised that I could actually stay in bed and continue looking at it without closing my eyes.
And you thought to yourself, it was all a dream, right?
No. I actually didn't. And probably
Oh.
I didn't think it was all a dream for the simple reason well, truth be told, I don't really remember dreams.
No, me either. I tell a lie.
Okay.
Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Most of them, I actually go to Jody to help me interpret them. And then once I get interpreted by her, then I understand.
See, for me, the only time I actually remember a dream is when it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I had a dream. I think I mentioned it a while back, where I dreamed of a woman who was running a healing facility in the near realms,
Mm-hmm.
and she had drowned. She had crossed over from drowning. Her father was a Catholic, and he had a daughter who crossed over from cancer, and then this daughter who had crossed over from drowning, but he didn't know whether she had taken her own life or not.
Wow.
And he was in the hospital, and my wife was his social worker. And I got up in the morning and said, "Babe, I got to tell you this dream I had because it's freaking me out. It's because I mean it's very adamant to me because I remember so few dreams, you know. So when I remember one, it's like, whoa, I got to tell someone this, you know, this is cool. And I told her the dream, and I said, you know, she showed me around this facility, and it's a healing facility. So when someone crosses over, and they're really like, you know, they've had a really traumatic life, or whatever, and they need time to heal, they come here. But at the end, you know, when she finished showing me around and everything, She said to me, now, my name is, you know, and she was so adamant I had to remember her name that she told me her name 3 times. Now, right now, I couldn't tell you what the name is. And so I'm telling my wife this story, this dream that I had. She looks at me and she goes, no. I said, what do you mean, no? No, 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 no. I said, what? She goes, that's the daughter of my patient.
Oh.
Because her father, right, is
Right.
Catholic, right? So as a Catholic, suicide is like a mortal sin. And she
wow.
wanted to get the message to her father that in truth she was fine. She was actually running the facility. She was in charge of it. And
Wow.
so my wife, of course, she's like in a dilemma now. She's going to work, and it's like, do I tell him this dream or not?
Mm.
So she goes to his room, right? And he's in a 4-person bay. And there's a lot of people in there, and there's a lot of light in there, and it just doesn't feel right. So she's like, nah. So she walks away. And then she comes back a little bit later, and he's not in the 4-person bay anymore. And he's in a private room. And in the 4-person bay, of course, there's like the fluoro lights and all of that. But now he's in this private room, and the lights are like very peaceful and soft. And he's waiting to be picked up because he's going home that day, that morning.
Mm-hmm.
So Janice is like, well, it's either tell him now or I'm not going to get to tell him. And so very slowly she goes, I have something to share with you. My husband had a dream. And
Okay.
I got to be honest with you. I was so proud of my wife because it took a lot of guts for her in her job as a social worker to tell a patient that,
Yeah.
And so, see, I have so few dreams. I remember them that well.
Have you ever astral traveled?
Well, that depends. I'm not familiar with astral traveling as
Right.
far as me, myself, and I doing it. However, having said that, I am very well aware of being on fifth dimensional ships at night when my body sleeps.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know whether you would actually classify that so much as astral traveling. But I mean, technically speaking, it would be astral traveling. Because
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, because I'm not actually in my body or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, I'm not very aware of doing it. No.
Okay. I know I have. And it can be really, really scary. I do remember when I was little, but I'm not sure what the age was, but when my dad's grandparents died, I actually astral traveled to their house, and at the time, I actually was able to sort of like go through the house and see all the furniture that they previously had in real life, and now the house has been sold. And when I started going through the house, I could actually feel the energy, which was really, 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 really cold. And like when we used to visit when we were young kids, it was really warm. So,
Right.
and that was fascinating. So, and that happened that happened a few times actually. I used to travel to their house, and yeah, that was fun.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. So
Where's that gone?
well, now you've come onto my show.
Yes.
My show is a quantum show.
Yes.
So I do know that the last show that I did with Colin, he actually said that it seemed like the show lasted all of 20 minutes. So I do have a tendency to do things like that, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But now, as we do only have about 10 minutes left in the show, I'm going to give you the opportunity, and I don't know why I'm doing this. I almost feel a little scared in doing this. But what I'm going to do is, you can ask me anything you want to ask me about any topic, spiritually speaking, and you go now.
All right. First topic that I want to ask you is remote viewing. What's your views on that?
Remote.
Yes.
No, you wanted my view on that. It's remote.
Okay.
Now for myself, there are two areas that I chose for whatever reason
Yep.
that I wasn't going to have in this incarnation. One was vision, inner vision, and the other was remembering names. I'm really bad with remembering names. Having said that, I do know that there are those, and I know that there has been particular programs that have been going on, shall we say, in certain governmental areas where they have utilized remote viewing quite a lot.
Yeah.
It is an actual science. It is an actual thing that there are those who can do it. I personally have never done it.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of training to be able to actually go down that road.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Now, another question.
Yep.
Paranormal. What's your views on that?
Basically, with the paranormal, do you really want to know?
Yes.
I kind of feel like sometimes it is a situation where you have a soul or an energy or an entity that is stuck.
Yeah.
And they are very angry. And because of that anger, they lash out, and they lash out in a way that is, would be classified as being paranormal. Sometimes I believe that the paranormal events that are occurring in a house is actually being created by those within the house. Although they are not aware that they are the ones who are actually creating the situation.
Yeah. What about people that have these marks on their bodies? I'm a bit iffy about that. So what's your views on it?
There are those that have that, and that has occurred. I do feel that there are a couple of different things. Sometimes I think that it happens more for simply to allow the individual, or for the individual to become aware, if you will, that what they've experienced has really happened. And I also think that it also happens with, and some people may laugh at this or whatnot, I also kind of feel like it also happens around certain ET experiences or abductions.
Because I guess for me, I'm kind of a bit iffy about that. So if I say I experienced it, then maybe my outlook on this subject probably will change. So
Well, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like as an example, I always, was told growing up that God was pure, unconditional love.
yeah,
But I can honestly tell you, because of what I've experienced, I actually did not understand or know what that actually meant until I had that experience in 1989, where I experienced the pure, unconditional love, and it was like, I now understand completely what that is and how powerful it is, and I have an understanding, and I don't mean this to sound egotistical, because it's not, but I have an understanding that most anybody else cannot understand. Only because, and that's been my complaint. My complaint has been, why won't you allow more people to experience this?
Yeah.
Because it is literally one of the most life-changing and life-altering experiences someone can have.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is, like, if someone has the experience just like you've explained through the show today, once you have experienced it for yourself, then you'll completely understand where everyone else is coming from.
Correct. And I mean, for some people, it's like they will actually ask, oh, please, let me have this experience, or let me have that experience. And it never happens. And the problem is, there's nothing wrong with you. All right?
No.
That needs to be very, very clear. There is nothing wrong with you. What it is that's not part of your path to experience that or to go down that route. And that's the other problem is the problem is, we incarnate, and we are the ones who have decided what we want to experience and who we want to interact with, who we want to marry, kids that we want to have, all of these things. We do that. We experience that. We've set all that up.
Yep.
But we get down here, and all of a sudden, we don't remember all that.
Nope.
And so all of a sudden, we get annoyed, and we get angry, and we get frustrated, and why won't you do this, and why won't you do that, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not happening because it's not because there's anything wrong with you, but what's happening in your life at this time is what you've chosen to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what ends up happening. And Tracy, I do thank you so much for stepping into the fray, if you will, with me.
Yeah, it was actually been fun. Thank you for having me today, sir.
Well, it's been loads of fun. I really, really hope that the people out there, that they've gotten something beneficial from the show. Maybe we've come across something or dealt with something that all of a sudden they can go, I can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, then that's fantastic, because at the end of the day, the purpose, for people like myself, is to share things and hopefully have somebody go, I now can understand that. It's like our conversation about you being 21.
Yep.
And being the whole walking experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that shocked me.
now you got something.
Yes.
That you can explore more now.
Yes, definitely I will. And thank you, James.
So, again, just one more time, if you will, real quick. I know we're running out of time.
Yep.
But if you can just, again, let people know where they can find you.
Yes, on Facebook, on Tracy Cooper 45, or on my website, I have mediumtracy.com.
And you can find me at bluestarspiritual.com or Blue Star Spiritual group on Facebook, and Metamorphosis, Life Coaching, Life Transformations. Have a wonderful day. Hopefully, if all goes well next week, Heather will be joining me as my guest, and we will go from there. So have a wonderful day, and many blessings to you.
Thanks for listening to James Devitt on SOC Radio. Join us next time for more of the same from spirituality in the 21st century.